Morena, good morning everyone and welcome to the Community and Natural Environment Committee meeting. And I'll let you say good morning across there if you still want to keep going, because that felt really cool, Ollie and Max. Anyone else wants to get in there? We're going to open the meeting with a prayer from Todd. Thank you for coming in, Todd.
Kia ora. My name's Todd Nakowitz, and I'm here representing both the Waikato Interfaith Council and the Waikato Jewish Association, and I have a prayer for good governance, which should sit well with everybody. Jews have a long tradition of praying for the welfare of the society in which they live. The earliest indication of this tradition comes from the prophet Jeremiah, who prophesied during the period of the first Jewish diaspora during Babylonian exile in the years 587 to 538 BCE. Living for the first time in a country which was not their own, they were counseled by Jeremiah to pray for its success and prosperity. From Jeremiah 29:7, seek the welfare of the city and pray to God on its behalf, for in its prosperity you too shall prosper. Since the 14th century, most Jewish prayer books have contained a prayer for good governance, in keeping with Jeremiah's injunction. There were certainly times and places when Jews lived under governments which had policies towards Jews which would have made it very difficult, if not impossible, for them to recite these prayers. We in New Zealand today are blessed to live in a democratic society which respects the rights of religious minorities. This is the prayer for good governance. Beloved God, we invoke your blessing upon this country, Aotearoa, New Zealand, and on its government and leaders. Guide them that they may administer all affairs of state in justice and righteousness. May peace and security, happiness, prosperity, and freedom forever abide among us. Unite the inhabitants of New Zealand in all its diversity. Safeguard our ideals and institutions from hatred and bigotry, so that the people of this land may fulfill the vision of the prophets. Let us give thanks for our democracy in New Zealand and for the freedom to worship and believe as we choose, no matter what that belief may be. On behalf of all humanity, help our elected officials and all in positions of power and authority to govern wisely and for the common good of all. Amen. Amen. Thank you. Kia ora.
Thank you, Todd. This is the first committee meeting since the sad passing of Kingi Tuheitia. So I would like the committee and the room to observe a moment's silence. Please, if you could stand. Mayor Paula, who's just arrived, she will actually say something more fitting in the council meeting on Thursday. I would also like to acknowledge the announcement of the new monarch, Queenie Nawai Hono i te Po. And thank you everyone. We'll kick into today's meeting, first with apologies. I've got Councillor Hutt, you're here now for the day, I take it?
I have something at 2 o'clock.
Ah, sure.
So fingers crossed.
Don't say it. Partial attendance from Councillor Donovan. Lateness, Mayor Paula's here, so she's, yep. And Councillor Moko is late as well? Yeah.
Thought I'd put an apology for partial attendance. I will need to be away at lunchtime.
Sure.
For the items around lunchtime.
Madam Chair, I'm assuming we will be done by 3:40.
You and I
So I
both.
won't put in my apologies.
Okay. All good. I will, yes,
Meeting scheduled in our calendars as well.
that's right.
Will they,
So that's a briefing that's scheduled for, at the close of this meeting. Whatever time this finishes, that will kick off.
okay. I'll need to leave at 3 o'clock.
Yep, sure. All right, I will move those. Councillor Anna, second. All those in favour say aye. Thank you. Confirmation of the agenda, I'm happy to move. Councillor Anna to second. Any issues? All those in favour say aye. Thank you. Declarations of interest from anyone? Councillor Tim?
Had a long-standing association, this is in relation to item 7. I've had a long-standing association with the Waikato Chinese Association, and I have given some advice relating to their presentation today. I'm happy to abstain from the discussion,
We might have to take that separately or something.
unless I'm required to answer.
Okay. Thank you. And no one else. We will go to public forum. So if I can invite Rachel, Corrales, and Lale. Rachel's online. Kia ora, Rachel. Here? Sorry, Lale, if you could make your way to the front, that would be awesome.
Kia ora tātou, mā roa lawala soifua maua ma langi mama. With Leo Pepe, Rachel, and myself, we're pleased to be able to provide an update report in and around Kautea Pacifica and our development at the Kautea Pacific Village down in Henamore Park. It's been a bit of a journey in that space, but a good opportunity for us to put a bit of a line in the sand as to where we are at the moment and to give you a bit of an update as to where we're looking to head in the future. Rachel is actually in Samoa at the moment on both family and business for us, and so she's celebrating the Tuila Festival over there, as well as doing some things with her family in that space, taking her kids back to experience a bit of the Samoan schooling in that space. So, but what we thought we'd do was, rather than go through the report, take the report as read, but more spend this time to offer the opportunity for questions in that space, and maybe dive straight into the questions piece. Unless, Rachel, did you want to provide any other updates or comments?
Only that we've recently completed the refurbishment of the Hamilton, what was the Hamilton Stadium Bowling Club, and just a couple of weeks ago we moved the team into that space, and we are now operating from that facility, and very grateful for the opportunity to be more impactful with the work that we do from the Kautea Pacifica Village. Thank you.
Cool. And you probably saw we had the recent visit from Minister Reti into the facility. Good successful discussion, one about the fact that we've prudently been able to spend PGF money well down there. One of the few projects that over the last 3 years has been delivered within the arrangements agreed. And then also with the Minister, for him to be able to see a different way of delivery of those wellbeing services, of which we hope to be able to have different arrangements moving forward with Te Whatu Ora to allow us to continue to deliver, not just for Pacific, but for all in that space. So, thank you.
So thank you for joining us, Rachel, as well. We will go to questions if there are any. Councillor Jeff?
Yeah, thanks, Chair, and thanks, Lale and Rachel.
Yeah, look, obviously great progress, and geez, the whālei looks amazing when you drive past. I've noted that the area around the whālei is sort of unfinished, and there's sort of fences up and all that. What's the plan going ahead for the grounds?
Sure. So with the Parks Recreation team at the moment, there's again been a bit of a discussion around how best to finish that area. Everyone's struggling with a bit of money to be able to finish those areas. The intention is to bring the fencing down progressively now that the team are in there, and then to be able to be clear about what level of security we might need in and around the ELC, especially, but then to focus on how we keep the areas open as we originally intended between the parties. So the intention is, as soon as we can get the scope confirmed between council and ourselves, we're ready to go with finishing the areas between our boundary and the council's boundary.
Cool. So it's not a question of readies of money. It's
It might be a little bit. You know, I think from the council side of things, there might be a little bit of a challenge to get the full level of funding for the full level of design that was originally intended. I think there's an opportunity for us to work better together on that, to find a better solution for that concrete area, especially outside.
okay. Looking forward to it. Yeah. Well, it looks brilliant apart from that. So well done.
Thanks very much.
Thank you. Councillor Max.
Kia ora and welcome. It's beautiful to see the whālei in our city and being used, and I see it pop up in my Facebook from time to time, so that's always great. We don't hear a lot about the Education Centre. Tell us a little bit more about that and how your enrolments are going and early feedback.
Sure. I'll let Rachel answer that one first, right?
Hello, Maxine. Lovely to see you. The Early Learning Centre, it has been a bit of a challenge, just in terms of finding registered teachers with specific competencies, and then also a balancing act in terms of sustainability and enabling access for those children for whom the centre was originally envisaged and then constructed. But we are now. We have currently 65 children registered and attending the Early Learning Centre. We have a licence for up to 85, so we're well on track in terms of being operational and moving towards sustainability.
Terrific, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Emma.
Thank you, Chair Kesh, and yeah, echo the sentiments around the room on the great progress that you've made with the whālei, and it's a fantastic asset for our city, so thank you for the work you have done with that and the work that you do in the community as well. Just noting on your item report there about the community use and just how you haven't actively promoted it yet, but that's in your plans. What's the kind of vision for community use, and how are you looking to promote that to wider groups in the community?
Sure. I might start with that one and then I'll ask Rachel to carry on. I think the first intention for us was to create an opportunity for our Pacifica communities to be able to have a priority around using that facility, given its village context, and then to be able to continue to open up to other community groups as we sort of find our balance. The board have recently confirmed that with our 13 Pacific Islands, that we're working on being able to give them the 1 day a year for their language weeks as free use in that space. And then trying to work through the commercial reality of keeping enough events going to be able to cover those types of community contributions. I think it's important for us, Emma, that we started this off with the view of making sure we could wash our face in that mix and not have to come back to council or anyone else to look for funds. And I think that the team have been doing a really great job getting events into the facility whilst we're partially complete, and then sort of blending in Pacifica with priority, and then all other community groups as well. Rachel, do you want to add to that?
Only to say that we've had a good use of both private functions booked within the space, community group use, but also the organisation itself has been using it a couple of times a week for some of our larger group programs, and also to bring our elderly people together with the young children from the Early Learning Centre, which was always the intention of the village, that these components would not operate in isolation of one another, but there would be integration across the whole village for the whole family.
That's wonderful, thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Mayor Paula?
Morena, good morning. Just in terms of the primary, and I was a bit lucky and able to go through it, Rachel, just last weekend at Lale. So it was wildly beyond my expectations, the quality of the services you provide. Tell us a little bit, though, about the primary health services that you provide in that whole wing of the building.
Sure.
Thank you.
I'll let again, Rachel. Do you want to jump into that?
So just in the same way as the Early Learning Centre took time to, build from the ground up, we are in the same process. We currently have a GP contracted to support our families 2 days a week, and of course we also have our nurse-led services. We've been recruiting 4 GPs and also nurse practitioners, nurse prescribers and nurses to facilitate the building of our extended primary care service. I think it's fair to say we are experiencing the same challenges that the whole of Aotearoa is experiencing in terms of clinical capability shortage, but we continue to work towards what was always intended to be a facility that supported up to 5,000 patients. I think the other thing similar with the Early Learning Centre is that this primary care offering is to support those people in our community for whom access is otherwise a challenge. So again, needing to be really fiscally prudent, but also quite strategic in terms of how we enable the delivery of primary care in our space the way that we believe it needs to be delivered to meet the needs of our families. Hence our recent acquisition and partnership with Pinnacle of Hamilton East Medical Centre.
Thank you.
Thank you. There are no other questions, so thank you so much for coming in, and thank you for dialing in from sunny, I'm hoping sunny Samoa. Thank you, Lale.
Thank you very much, Kesh. I just wanted, on behalf of our Pacific community as well, just to say thank you to the council for continuing to support us, for taking that brave step, and helping to work with us to deliver something like that for the community. And hopefully Pacific can continue to contribute to the community, which is Aotearoa. And thank you to our tangata whenua for welcoming us into that space as well. Te lava mo le awa noa.
Whakatātere lava.
So committee members will have a chance to speak to that more fully when we bring the item under the General Manager's report as well. So we'll go back to the public forum now. We've got Ms. Hazel Scanlon. Oh, kia ora. Please make your way to the front. Speaking to item 7. Thank you. We've got 5 minutes for you to speak, and if you want to allow some time for questions, that would be really good too. Thank you.
Morena tātou. I'm a current member of Shinjukai Karate Do. I started as students of my children at 6 years old in the club, and then progressed into a student myself. Supporting parent, bringing our tamariki to a club that has been established since 2002. Our club is predominantly Māori focused, teaching Goju Karate Do. I am now a teacher at the dojo, and all of our students have come through our now, I think we have 17 black belts that teach in that club. It's a club that we haven't advertised for through its reputation of the students and the parents that are there. We are closely connected through kura and schools around the district who come. So it's a well-established school of karate, and we have sister clubs in Taumaranui, Hawaii, and in Australia. So it is a place where, with the railway hall being a heritage home or a heritage building, it has some attraction to those who are in the area and know the area very well. So we are here today to make an application to release that property. And if we're allowed to, we have a parent who was happy to come in and speak to his children who are attending the karate club.
Time, so if you'd like to add anything, you're welcome to.
Papa.
Kia ora everyone, my name's Salam Simon. I'm here on behalf of some of the parents that are involved with the Shinjo Kai Club, and I had my daughter start when she was 7, and she was very shy, as a lot of kids are at that age, not very confident, and I tried out several other clubs, and she wasn't really getting the teachings that Shinjo Kai Club that we came across. They sort of had a family environment and slowly developed and grew the children to be more confident. Now she's 13, she's a black belt, one of the 17 black belts there. She's not teaching yet, but she's just got her belt, and yeah, very proud parent, and yeah, just been really appreciative of the community work that the club has done, and yeah, just wanted to thank them as well, but make you guys aware of the community service that they provide in that area. There's a lot of lower socio-economic or socio, how do you say, the lower class parents there that attend as well, and students that attend there, where money hasn't been a big factor for the club. They've been able to support those parents and their children to gain their confidence and develop them. Yeah, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing. Did we have any questions? No. Thank you so much for coming in and for sharing that with us. Thank you. We've got a next speaker, Kewa Lo, speaking to item 7 as well.
Thank you, Madam Chair and councillors. I'm appearing on behalf of our President, Paul Chin. Unfortunately, he's away overseas on urgent business and conveys his sincere apologies. So I'm here just to reiterate our desire to have the lease on our hall extended from 10 years to 15 years. And while we appreciate staff's their recommendation in recommending a 10-year lease, we feel that it's probably a bit more appropriate that if the lease be extended to a 15-year period. The reasons for that are quite simple. I'll outline them, and I think Paul has basically provided a submission in support of the 15-year extension period. I'll just talk to that as well. One, we are financially stable. We have the support of our umbrella organisation, which is the New Zealand Chinese Association, and they have this financial backing, or we do have their financial resources available to us if anything failed. We also have quite a proactive management regime in looking after the hall. We're responsible for its management, its maintenance, and just recently we had undertaken quite a significant program of maintenance and upgrading. We had the bathrooms renovated. We had the fire doors replaced, and just recently this year we had the roof replaced. Two, we also play quite a significant role in the community space. We provide cultural understanding. We offer some Chinese lessons, although it's mainly Cantonese. We also are quite active in promoting cultural festivities and heritage events, all of which contribute to the diversity of Hamilton City. While our membership size has fallen to around about 80 families, much of that's been attributed to COVID in the last few years, where we have seen quite a number of our senior members fall away. But we are promoting and trying to enlarge our membership base through the national organisation as well. So. I think one of the key points in extending the lease from 10 years is that, one, if it is seen as a 10-year period, it appears that it would disincentivize our ability to maintain the hall. Secondly, the fact that if it's a 10-year period, it sends out mixed messages to the wider community in that maybe something's not quite right with the Waikato Chinese Association, in that the council is restricting its lease period to 10 years rather than extending it to 15. So basically, in conclusion, the Waikato Chinese Association, it's a long-established association. It has strong financial backing. It's financially stable. It plays a significant role in culturally in extending our the social role that it plays, and in providing a 15-year period for the hall. It just makes it a wee bit easier for us to function as an organisation.
Thank you. We've run out of time. Oh, I'll allow one question.
I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. You're fine. Councillor Emma?
Sorry, just a quick question. You talk about your investment in the maintenance of the hall. Is there any idea of how much that the organisation has spent in the investment of the hall?
Well, the bathroom, the refurbishment of the bathroom was $55,000.
Right.
The fire doors themselves were $22,000. The roof was in the order of about between $30,000 and $40,000.
And it was all taken on by the association?
We had a poll tax grant for 50% of the bathroom, and the rest were monies that we had ring-fenced for those maintenance.
That's wonderful. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Sarah, is it quick?
Thank you. Yeah, I was just interested, thanks for your presentation, I was interested in what further investment the club was looking at in terms of the building.
Well, we were thinking of putting in heat pumps that's the next major expense. We do have some vandalism that happens, and we're trying to set aside monies for that. So those are the immediate ones that are in mind at the moment.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Points were clearly made. Thank you for coming in and for sharing.
Thank you very much. Thank you, councillors.
All right, so we'll move to item 5, confirmation of the minutes from the 11th of June. I'm happy to move. Can I have a seconder? Councillor Anna. Any comments or questions? Nope. All those in favour, say aye. Thank you. Item 6, onto the Chair's report. I'll take it as read. And I want to thank Councillor Louise and Deputy Mayor Angela for their input as well into the Chair's report. Thank you. Sure. Are there any questions on the report? No. Good report then. Mayor Paula?
In terms of the age-friendly, we get an update a bit later in the leases, right? So that's the time to address questions about what's happening with age concern and no.
That's not on today's agenda. Do you
But
mean
you've got it
coming
in
up?
your report.
Yeah.
I'd be interested in a more thorough, knowing when a more thorough update was coming about age-friendly. You have it in your report, but also Celebrating Age Centre and where we're at with the progress on that.
Yeah, we do have an information session. I'm not sure the date.
Yes, there is a briefing session that has been booked in. I will circulate the date so that you're all aware.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm happy to move the report. Deputy Mayor, would you like to second that? Sure. Cool. Not a lot to add. Again, it is Welcoming Week this week, so if you haven't been out to any events, make sure you do. Saturday is one of the highlights with the Welcoming Manaki Village. There's 33, I think, stalls and maybe 31 performances by community groups, so it's sure to be a good one. Other than that, I hope you appreciated some of my photos. Councillor Anna and I were lucky enough to head to a few places in the lead up to the LTP, one of them being the museum and the storage area of the museum. If you haven't been, I encourage you to arrange a visit because there's some treasures down there. The artworks in particular were just mind-blowing, the amount of stuff we have down there. Yeah, the gardens, we've got, of course, we've got the official opening of the visitor precinct next week, so looking forward to that. And thank you to the library team who actually had pulled out the first results of the first election for the Hamilton Borough, I think it was called, and I had it ready for us to view. So that was the highlight, I think, of the day. Thank you to Rebecca and her team for doing that. And yeah, nothing else to say on that. Are there any other comments from Councillor Bitter?
Thank you, Chair Kesh. And also thank you to Councillor Louise for her last paragraph in that report, talking about the threadbare retirement that is for those who can't afford fancy retirement villages. Hamilton City Council planning rules have made one-bedroom apartments uneconomic to build, and this has a big impact on retired people. Council planning rules also stop intergenerational homes because of the danger to the city of having 2 kitchen sinks. Thankfully, the national government has proposed granny flats as a policy to introduce across the country, which is actually based on something I wrote 5 years ago. Council needs to support the implementation of these granny flats rather than putting the usual roadblocks in the way. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Anna.
To follow up, and also thanks to Councillor Louise on the topic of affordable housing and older people, because that work has now been picked up by myself and a couple of people from the community, and the Waikato Housing Initiative will be discussing that particular topic tomorrow. So thank you, Councillor Louise.
Thank you. Any other speakers? No. And I just wanted to quickly add, I learned this morning that our lifeguards have been placed second at the Nationals. So well done to them. That's really cool news to hear. Please pass on our congratulations to the team. I am happy to move that. Oh yes, and Deputy Mayor was seconding. So all those in favour say aye. Any against? Thank you. We'll move to item 7, please. Community occupancy applications. And welcome, Karen.
Morena. So my name's Karen Kwok and I'm the team leader of sport and community facilities. So today's community occupancy report is seeking approval of 2 community leases who you've heard from both of them. So Shinjukai Karate-Do at Frankton Railway Hall and the New Zealand Chinese Association, the Waikato branch, for the land footprint of their building at Glenview Park. It's also seeking approval to add a land area of 3,000 square metres to the Hamilton Marist Rugby Football Club draft lease agreement, and that's to enable the development of a junior artificial turf with lights adjacent to the existing artificial turf. So happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Do we have any questions for Karen? Councillor Ewan?
Yeah, thanks, Chair Cash. Karen, I just want a better understanding of why you didn't support the Chinese Association's expression of interest for 15 years versus 10.
Sure. Yep. So we've obviously assessed their lease application against the policy criteria. So we had some sustainability concerns around their sort of low declining membership. And also their facility usage is quite low, 6 to 8 times per year currently. And I know, so they've got 10 volunteers that essentially sort of look after, run the facility, organise all the events. So to us there was a bit of vulnerability in that setup. I mean, they obviously they own the building, they provide a great facility for the community to book, so that's fantastic. I mean, staff are pretty relaxed around whether the council want to do a different lease term. We just felt that it should be reviewed 5 years earlier to have another look and make sure they are sustainable.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Emma?
Thank you. Yeah, I'm also talking about the Waikato Chinese Association. Can you inform us how common it is to put such heavy investments in a large community facility like that?
Yeah, I mean, we would obviously expect or hope that most groups are keeping their buildings maintained. I mean, it's a fairly old building, and well, most of our buildings that we've actually got at parks are old buildings, and a lot of them are needing investment to keep them maintained, and it was great to see that they have, you know, invested in the toilets and the roof. So yeah, it's not uncommon, but it's great that they have done that, because there are, you know, other groups that sort of have just do the bare minimum maintenance.
And in terms of supporting the wider community, can you talk a bit further about the before and after school care and how that accommodating them might prohibit further bookings or
Sorry,
just
say that
understanding
again.
that structure a bit more.
How-
The before and after school
Yep.
care wouldn't leave by choosing to support them and the number of kids that are going there. How might that prohibit a wider use of
So
bookings?
it supports the children at Glenview Primary School. I mean, I actually think it's a good thing having them in there because that is their highest user before and after school care. I mean, it still does leave the sort of later part of the evenings available for bookings because it's only after school care and before school care, so the times aren't at that peak time for when the community normally want to book it, which is in the evenings. They also do school holiday programs, and they are, obviously their highest user of the centre, so it supports the Chinese Association in terms of, usage and revenue. But if they did leave, that would leave a gap in terms of use.
That need would still need to be met by someone else though,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you.
Councillor Sarah?
Thank you, Chair. Karen, just interested in the following up on those questions there. I was interested in what is available to community groups in terms of a joint-up booking system that would make it really easy to see all available spaces at all times and enable usage of facilities like this.
Yeah. So it's a bit of a challenging one because there are, so we don't, there isn't a booking system at the moment for all the groups to use. They all have their own sort of systems, and often it depends on also the time for volunteers. A lot of them probably use like an Outlook type calendar system for their bookings, or even, literally recording bookings handwritten. So, and a lot of groups want to do their own thing when it comes to booking systems.
Is there a lost opportunity, though, given the discussions we've had around the need for community space, where we don't have groups kind of who are leasing these places for, $200-something a year, kind of required to be part of some sort of open booking system to increase accessibility?
So what we do is have the page on Council's website where we're promoting different facilities, community facilities, whether they are on council land or not on council land, that are available for hire. So at the moment we're looking to update those and make sure that they've got updated information around what's available from that facility, contact details, so that we can make sure that people that are looking for spaces have that as a resource to find facilities and connect in with groups.
Yeah, okay. Final question at this point, Chair. Do you think, obviously, setting up some kind of system would cost, and then there would be the time input from the groups leasing these buildings, but is it something that you would see being worth investing in to maximise usage of community facilities in the longer run?
Yeah, do you want to?
We can look into it. We are actually upgrading our booking system currently. It is resource intensive, managing bookings. So to have an open booking system and for council to be administering the booking would be resource intensive. Currently, we are looking at, as Karen said, updating the information that we have on our website. We have an awareness of, we do connect groups into, where we know there are facilities available. So we can manage that within the resources that we've got, but to actually be administering the bookings for, across the city of spaces, yeah, it would cost.
Okay, is it possible to have just a staff action for, say, the next General Manager's report, just to understand a little bit more on this topic? 'Cause what I'm interested in is the cost of building new facilities, which we talked about and don't have any money for at the moment, versus what might be in relative terms, a moderate investment to modernise booking systems. And also another part of that question, which is, where are the other opportunities where there are spaces which are not council owned, which could be better utilised? Cool, thank you.
Councillor Maria.
Kia ora, tēnā kōrua. Just a quick question, and the question is about, leading on from Councillor Sarah. When will that updated list of contacts be finished, and how can we access it and promote the link to our communities?
So we don't have an exact time frame, but we are, because there are some updates being done to our website at the moment. But we are working with our communications and website team around updating it, and we do have information from a survey we did with a community provision project that has has detail around facilities in Hamilton City that are, like private and on council land. So we do have the information there, but we will need to double check that information. And it's a large piece of work in terms of there's probably 200 or 300, organisations with facilities, and it's making sure we're putting that they're happy for us to advertise their facilities as well.
Appreciate your mahi and your efficiency, because my husband and I got married at the cenotaph and it was very easy to do it.
Oh, good.
Once we've got an awareness of timeframes, we can circulate that.
Thank you.
Mayor Paula?
I feel a little bit of Groundhog Day moment here, but in terms of because we've had a number of people ask for lease extensions, can you explain to me the reason why we went away from all long-term leases into more agile, shorter leases?
Yeah, so, and I think it's not just Hamilton City. A lot of councils around New Zealand have gone to slightly shorter leases because the 20-year leases were a really long time frame. And especially at the moment, with the amount of city growth that we're experiencing and change in our city, the shorter lease terms of 10 and 15 years just give us that flexibility should the spaces change or council require the land, or even if, there's a lot of movement and changes in sport and rec and community groups at the moment. It just gives us a chance to review the lease terms at a shorter time frame rather than being locked in for the 20 years.
So is it correct then to assume that the problem occurs with the more stable clubs that are trying to reinvest in their future as opposed to those with a slightly more uncertain horizon?
Yeah, I think so. Obviously all groups want the security of tenure for as long as they can get, and it does depend. It depends on the situation and whether they own the building or, what sort of investment is required.
Yeah, and if I can ask, would it be possible, as an addition to Sarah's request, to report back on how we're trying to maximise the use of council leased spaces? Because I think, am I correct in assuming some of those shorter leases were the idea that as leases come up, we would look at the best use for the best space, and try and get some of the capacity properly shared and used across because we've got quite a few people still waiting for space, right? Do you still get a number of people coming and asking?
Still, but less than we were getting.
Less?
It's
that's good.
It's not as many, as say a couple of years ago. And, some of the groups we have found spaces, or we've managed to link them up with different spaces.
Cool, thank you.
You wanted to add something?
Just to say, Mayor Paula and councillors, the community occupancy policy is coming due for review, and that's the opportunity for elected members to have a really good look at what our lease terms are, why they are what they are, and perhaps make some changes. So we expect that will be coming up early in the new year. So
Yeah, thank you. Sorry, one more question. In circumstances, like we've heard from a couple of submitters today, but in some circumstances, on special case, we have been able to extend that lease to give them their certainty of reinvestment, haven't we? There's nothing stopping us from doing that. It's not black and white.
No.
No. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Maxine?
Thank you. Just looking at the 10 versus 15 proposals, and just want to understand what the burden is on the organisation in terms of a 10-year lease as opposed to 15, and what do we require at the approaching expiry of that term?
Sorry, what do you mean by the burden?
Well, what kind of time investment do they need to do? How, you know, putting together
To do a lease application.
Yeah.
So it's similar to a grant application, probably a little bit more thorough than a grant application. So they fill in the application, we meet with them, they provide the supporting information like you would with a grant in terms of, you know, their financials and annual reports, insurance certificates, things like that. And then it's if, you know, staff have any further questions to make sure we're comfortable that we have enough information to put forward a recommendation.
And do we have leases that have a plus
No.
approach to them? You know, we give you this amount of time
Yep.
plus an additional time frame
Yeah.
for
So no,
good behaviour or something?
Under the current community occupancy policy, there aren't right of renewals. Right of renewals are always in the favour of the leasee. So if you have a right of renewal, then it's at their request if they want to renew it for an extra term.
And there's no opportunity for us to review it once we've agreed a term?
No, not. So there's clauses in the lease about if council needs the land for another purpose, in terms of essentially an out clause. All groups can come to us if they wish to surrender their lease, and it's by agreement.
Okay, and how long have they had their whare on that site?
They've been there since, are you talking about the Chinese
I am
Association?
talking about the Chinese, yeah, sorry.
They've been there since 1991. They bought the building off the Glenview Community Centre, but they've been established since 1934, so long time.
Thank you,
Yeah.
it's helpful.
Thank you. Mangaioli?
Chair Kesh, thanks Karen for your report. Just a 15-year lease, does that open council up to any precedent for any other groups to extend their leases for whatever reason we may not want to extend for 15 years? Is that set a precedent that's going to kind of lock us in going forward?
No, I don't think so. I mean, that's the maximum for a group when they own their own building on council land. The 10-year lease is the maximum if they're in a council-owned building, so we have a shorter time frame if they're in one of our buildings, give us more flexibility with that space.
Thank you. Those are all the questions. There is a motion that's been proposed by Councillor Emma and seconded by Councillor Andrew in regards to a change to the staff recommendation for the Chinese Association, moving their term to 15 years. So you're moving the whole thing?
I thought I could. It's brought out. Well, I'm happy either way. If someone wants to move the rest of it, as long as I'm...
We're easy.
I've got it set up so she's moving the whole lot.
Yeah.
But it's just retaining the parts of it.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
either or. Whatever's
That's fine.
easiest.
All good. All right, so we'll take the whole thing. So sorry, you're moving and you're seconding the whole thing, but we'll take it in parts for voting due to a conflict with Councillor Tim. Correct? Yeah. Okay, Councillor Emma, over to you.
Just explaining the motion? Or my full
who's
thing?
speaking?
Look, I just want to thank the Kiwi for representing on behalf of President Paul Chin of the Waikato Chinese Association. While I note the hesitance to offer a longer lease, I think the WCA have demonstrated they've invested a significant amount of funding towards their maintenance, as well as an intention to be a long-term leaseholder. As an ex-Glenview School pupil who is old enough to have assemblies in that hall, I can tell you it's not a new building, and it does require a lot of maintenance, and I acknowledge the long-standing lease that they have had there. I also want to acknowledge the willingness to support the wider community through their before and after school care, which does make it a bit difficult for other community groups to hire, but the need for school care is well sought after, as is the holiday programs, and as a service that the community needs to fill, and whomever would end up with facilitating this would be left with gaps that are difficult to fill, and that's just the reality of taking on that challenge, I guess. So I just want to acknowledge the work that Waikato Chinese Association have done, that the investments they've made and their long-standing commitment to the facility, and therefore would moving the 15-year lease to allow them to continue this work and long-term investment. Yep, thank you.
Councillor Andrews, seconder, would you like to speak?
Nothing to add to that.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Jeff?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Yeah, look, I'm supportive of the motion, and I'm also supportive of Councillor Pike's part of the motion to extend that lease for 15 years. I used to live nearby there and walk the dog there for years, and geez, the place was always humming and always busy, and they're very passionate about what they do. I'm also very supportive of Hamilton Marist's application for extra space to be added to their lease for another artificial turf. It just seems to me an excellent use of that space at no cost to the council, and of course they've done the fundraising. So I congratulate them for what they've already done with the artificial turf. There's obviously momentum there, and so all power to them. Well done.
Mayor Paula?
Thank you. Support the motion. There is a fine balance always with leases, you know, because we had the Cote Pacifica did well out of an expiring lease, which was for a club that was declining very badly but had a really big building. So you've got to get that balance right. But having said that, the ones that are before us today are proven community groups that have stood the test of time and want to invest in our city. And where we can, we should always help others to help us. I'm still really keen, and they are helping us, if they invest in the buildings and they look after the buildings, they bring community together, that's win-win-win for us. But in terms of the bigger picture, I'm glad to hear that the request for space is diminishing, which is good to hear, because there was a time not that long ago when people were knocking on our door saying we've got nowhere to meet, we've got nowhere to do our activities, and we were trying to juggle, and Karen did an excellent job of trying to juggle people into space, to be honest. I would like to get to a point in time in the city where all the space is well used all of the time, that we can maximise the use of the stuff that we have, and that we can diminish the costs of clubs with common administrative purposes, like, you know, letting space and things like that. It makes sense. We are just noting, of course, that there are some places that are coming towards the end of their life that we still have to consider. And when you consider what happened with the Celebrating Age Centre, I don't want to see that repeated and repeated. So we do need timely action on buildings as they come to the end of their life, proactively thinking ahead and providing space for our community.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Moko?
Support the lease extension for the Shinjo Kai Dojo. I am familiar with that building. My daughter also is black belt in that same building with Arthur. So they do great stuff there. I haven't got my black belt yet, but it's probably I should go to training. And also, yeah, thanks for that extension. I'll turn up in the next 10 years. Hey, and the Chinese and our Waikato Chinese Association, quite clearly they're making an investment and they plan to be around for some time, and I have no issues with that extension as described up there. Very appreciative of them, as well with our Marist Rugby Club and what they are seeking. It's very difficult for many of our community groups to get space to operate out of, and I think wherever we have the ability to accommodate them, then I think we should. And so, kia ora.
I'll add my support to the motion. Thank you, Councillor Emma, for bringing that forward. And again, like Councillor Jeff, I just want to recognise and acknowledge the work that Marist is doing, bringing the first artificial turf to our city, and now raising funds for a junior turf. It's not easy in this environment to be raising funds, so well done to them. The report did touch on the increased usage of Marist, the Marist area as well, from 8 hours a week now going up to 40 hours a week, and just the impact that that would have on our sporting groups and things is massive. So happy to support the motion. Councillor Tim?
Yeah, Madam Chair, I haven't spoken in light of the disclosure I made at the start of the discussion, but could I just seek guidance from governance as to whether or not it's appropriate for me to vote on this motion?
You're perfectly within your rights to vote on it, or you might want to vote on the first one, which is not the New Zealand Chinese Associated or Corporation Waikato branch matter. It's just the beginning section, and you can also debate on it.
I mean, I'm not a member, I don't feel conflicted, but I just felt I ought to advise that I had spoken to the submitter.
It's completely your choice.
So that sought my advice. So you're quite comfortable?
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
To speak?
Delighted with the discussion. I thank members for their contributions and naturally fully support the comments that have been made.
Thank you. Mangai Oli?
Thanks, Chair Kesh. Look, I support the motion as well, and just wanted to offer congratulations to Hamilton Marist for the leadership they've shown in providing the city with real amenity value through artificial turf. I think reading that report, it also highlighted, the need articulated was for football turf as well. I know talking with grassroots clubs like West Hamilton United, they expressed their frustration at the size of their club and the inability to actually have an artificial turf for football. I know, obviously council is very stretched for capital expenditure, but any way that we can facilitate and work with clubs for the provision of artificial turf would increase the amenity value of the city significantly, particularly for the amount of children that are now participating not only in rugby, but football is a massive growth sport. So just highlighting that need and congratulating Marist on of making this happen so far.
Councillor Maxine?
Look, I really wasn't going to speak, but just a couple of things actually. I think Councillor Sierra raised a really good point about availability of information to book places, and so anything that we can do that supports joined up and a much better approach, I'm sure would not only just be welcomed by the people looking to book a site, but also by the organisations and the time and effort it takes in order to be able to do that. In terms of our Chinese Association, they've been in the city and in that building, I beg your pardon, as long as I've been in the city. I've got nowhere else to go, and that I'm intending to go, and I'm, understand that they're looking for that long-term approach as well. I'm happy to support that. And that they've demonstrated that they've been around for a very, very long time. In terms of Marist, it's a great use of a wasted little corner at the moment, and looks like a really awesome opportunity to be able to enhance the use of the space there. I worry a little bit sometimes about the car parking, and hope there's a solution for that into the future, and know that the club have got that on their list of things to do as well. Kia ora.
Thank you. No other no other speakers. Councillor Emma, did you have a right of reply? Okay. Thank you. We'll take it to the vote with a show of hands. All those in favour? Anyone against?
Carried unanimously.
Thank you. We'll take another item before we break, if that's all. Oh, sorry. Was it just...
When Tim advised that he wasn't, that meant that we could take it as one, but...
We'll go to item 8, and then we'll take a short break after. The General Manager's report. Helen.
Kia ora koutou. So the report just covers an update of Koutou Pacifica Hub development to provide an opportunity for them to come and update you, which you've heard from Lale and Rachel this morning. Staff can take any questions if you have any on that.
Yes, Deputy Mayor Angela.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks, Helen, or someone. I just have a question on the reducing red tape for arts and event stakeholders.
Okay.
Just wondering if that is how that's progressing, or is that also expected to be delayed?
So we'll update. No, that is progressing. I have talked to staff. Sorry, I meant for the Koutou Pacifica, so I'm just catching up on
Oh, do you want to do each item separately?
Yeah, I was just going to see if there were any questions on Koutou.
Oh, all right.
Yeah.
Any questions on Koutou project? Yes.
Thanks, Chair. I'm interested in understanding timeframes around being able to open up the area around Koutou and ensure that those path connections and things are completed, and also what we heard there were some barriers to sorting out a solution for the big concrete pad out front. So keen for an update on that too. Thanks, Maria.
So as Lale alluded to, the landscaping development within the Koutou lease has been slower than everyone would like, but they are developing a plan to pick that back up again. The old pit lane area is outside of the leased area, and so our focus is now on securing that from vehicle access. So obviously the last thing we want is a vehicle going through the hub. I've booked a meeting with Lale for next week to sit down and kind of align those two things. We'll update you as soon as we've got the plan firmed.
Okay, and at this stage, would the only work we'd be doing for that concrete pad be to secure it from vehicles?
So we had some renewals funding allocated to the area, and so renewals is able to be stretched for safety and compliance.
Yeah.
That will be the focus.
Okay.
And
because I recall there was some thinking around enhancing that area at this, but there's I assume no funding now for that.
Yeah, so conceptually we've got plans for the surrounding area of the whole Koutou and round into the tennis club area. You're quite right, there isn't level of service money, improvement money isn't there. But again, in talking to Lale, he said he may have a few ideas for funding, so we certainly will pursue those conversations.
Right, okay, thank you.
Any other questions for that first part? No.
Great. And so then the second part of the report relates to the proposed art and infrastructure policy, which was a resolution from the LTP and to be developed in conjunction with Creative Waikato. So we're just seeking an extension of timing for an information session. The resolutions ask us to hold that information session at the end of this year, so we're seeking an extension for early 2025, just with competing staff commitments. And also that will align with the timing of the review of the public art policy, and it makes sense to review those together. And Creative Waikato have advised they are comfortable with the proposed new timing. In that information session, we can also cover off the rest of the resolution. I have spoken with staff around, in relation to your question, Deputy Mayor, around looking at the red tape, and they are reviewing that. So they'll make any changes that can just be made as they go, and we'll provide an update to you as part of that information session early next year.
Deputy Mayor, you can keep your line of questioning.
I had a follow-up question, but I'll wait.
That's all right, because she's answered your first part. So you might as well.
No, I'm trying to find my notes, so.
Councillor Sarah?
Chair, on this item, Helen, does the red tape review for the arts include the issue of complaints? My understanding is that there's been this long-running issue where we haven't found a resolution yet, where, for example, events out on Victoria on the River end up resulting in complaints from people across the river, etc. And I've heard on numerous occasions that this is impacting on the ability to hold events. And there's
I'm not aware, but I'll make sure that I relay that back to the team, and that we'll cover that off.
Okay, cool, thank you.
Have you found your notes?
Just on page 31, under 16, I just want to clarify what the meaning is. It says, in terms of doing the work and integrating the possible new policy with a permanent public art policy, it says the additional section/sections would include principles and guidance. Is it the view of staff that the infrastructure and arts policy is just simply a section, or are you looking at, because that wasn't the intent of Councillor Hutt and my proposal that was supported by Council, to simply add a section into a public art policy. I would think they would actually be flipped the other way.
Okay.
So what's the intention? Do you know at this stage?
We don't know at this stage. I think the intention is to look at them both together and then look at what makes sense. I'm hearing
what becomes more material as a policy?
Yes, as a policy. So in undertaking that review, will determine that, taking on board what you've just advised here today as well, around how you see those things fitting together.
Okay.
Yep. Thank you.
Any other questions? No? So Mayor Paula's moving. Anyone to second? Deputy Mayor to second? Mayor Paula, would you like to speak to it?
Thank you. Just to acknowledge, it was a pleasure to go to Kote Village recently and see the vast progress, because many of us will remember what the club looked like when it was in fact a bowling club, and it doesn't even resemble anything, talking about refurbing something. They've done a great job, and I can see, and I heard some stories of the type of way that's touching people's lives, especially those who are less advantaged, so that was really cool. Agree that we need to work together cooperatively to clean up some of the roundabout bits, make it look more park-like and open to the public again. That would be good. In terms of the art policy, I think the deferral is a very sensible step forward for all those strands to come together, including the work that I know that Deputy Mayor has been doing as creative ambassador, drawing together a lot of information from a lot of different groups that will be useful at that time. So, thank you.
Deputy Mayor?
Yeah, thanks. Look, I'm comfortable with smushing the two things together. I mean, I know that we are under tough financial times, so it makes sense to do two things at once. I guess for me, though, the rules around how the public accepts and looks after permanent art, public art, is less material than the principles of a new policy that would integrate art into infrastructure and into our capital program moving forward. So that would be my expectation when we come to see what a draft combined policy will look like. And I use the example of my disappointment to date with Embassy Park, and I was on the Embassy Working Group many moons ago, along with Mark Servian, And I know that while the entrance to the new regional theatre is going to include the Riff Raff statue, the plans that I have seen over time have fallen way short of an entry precinct that celebrates a movie like the Rocky Horror Picture Show. So I feel if we'd had an art for infrastructure policy at the right time, that entry precinct would have A, had the funding, and B, had a much better outcome for the newest regional theatre of New Zealand. So I look forward to some good work in the new year from your team, Helen. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Emma?
Thank you. Yeah, just a quick comment. Really, I appreciate the situation at the moment, and I think finding efficiencies, working on similar policies at the same time makes sense, especially if Creative Waikato is supportive of this and think it could potentially result in some greater scope and more efficiencies, as I said. But I just wanted to tautoko Councillor Thompson's comments about the prohibitive effects of noise complaints on and how these are handled on hosting and the attraction of starting events in the city, and would appreciate staff considering that as well. Thank you.
Thank you. No other speakers? Mayor Polo, anything to add? All right, we will go to the vote with a show of hands. All those in favour? Anyone against?
Carried unanimously.
Thank you. We will take a break and aim to resume around 11, please. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, and we're back into the meeting on item number 9, the library's strategy update with Paula. Kia ora, Paula, welcome.
Oh, look at that, it's on, magic. O tēnā koutou katoa I ngā rangatira, ko Paula Murdoch tōku ingoa, he manutaki tui rau ahau. So it's a delight to be here this morning. Thank you, councillors. And I'm really happy to talk about a successful year for Hamilton City Libraries. In the year since the library strategy was approved, the team has worked really hard to deliver across all the strategy's outcome areas, which are learning and literacy, culture and community, digital inclusion, and engaging spaces. Numbers are back up, which is not attributable to any one factor, but obviously the high cost of living, the opening of Te Keti Aranui, new programming, and the increased level of comfort that the community is once again feeling in using public spaces and places such as libraries are all likely to have had an impact. Some of the highlights that demonstrate how the outcomes are being delivered include that in-person visitor numbers have increased to a level not seen in 10 years. Part of this is Te Keti Aranui having opened, but actually it's up across all sites as well. And that Te Keti Aranui, we're seeing that it is really new demand. Last year, Te Keti Aranui had 365,102 visits, which is almost 2.5 times the number of the next most visited site. The new model of service created there has been really well received by the community, and the facility and the surrounding precinct are really well used by the community. So I think that was a really prudent investment that council was able to make. And it will be something that we can build on for the future, perhaps at other sites. Numbers attending programs are up by nearly a third, and an increased focus on programs was a specific goal within the strategy. So it's good to see that the hard mahi in this area is actually yielding results. Online visits and use of online collections have also increased, suggesting that online and in-person use is not an either-or proposition, but actually that both are important. And we certainly see those differences across different communities that we work in. Another result worth noting is the increase in the use of APK services, that's free access to devices and to the internet. Within the last year, 71.8 terabytes of data, which is massive, is a huge amount, and it shows that this free internet is a really valued and important part of the service offering from libraries. Those are some of the key highlights for the year, for year one of the library strategy, but I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you.
Kia ora.
Deputy Mayor Angela?
Yeah, thank you for the reports. I guess my question will end up in a staff action. I emailed and asked for some figures, and when I've worked out the percentages, they change some of them quite substantially. I'm not here to rain on the library's parade, but I think it's really important. On page 38, the number of physical visits, if we take out the new library, it says here the change is up 69.35%. When I look at the figures taking out the new library, the number of physical visits is actually minus 2.76%. So I think it's important elected members see the percentages. But do you think that, I noticed that the online visits, which don't have a Te Keti Aranui figure, that's gone up 19%. Would that be one of the reasons why overall the libraries have dropped by 2%? Do you think? Is that something that you would take from those figures?
So just to clarify, you're suggesting that online is taking away from physical visits as well as Te Kiti Aranui, or?
Yes, so number of online visits on page 38, from 2022 you've got 1.4 million online, physical visits. 2022 year is 548,000 physical visits. Then in the report you said there was 928 for the last financial year. But when you take out the new library, that figure drops down to 563,000.
Correct.
Which is a 2% increase, not a 69% increase.
Yeah, it's still an increase. And
It's
I guess
quite significantly different from what's reported. But
yeah, I guess we don't know to what degree, if we hadn't opened Te Kiti Aranui, what the figures would actually look like. We know that, in some communities, the physical facility of the library is an important part of the service offering. It's a place to, socialise, for people to come and have their needs met. So,
are there trends, do we know, in other libraries where physical visits are dropping in favour of online visits? Is that a trend we're seeing elsewhere? Do we know?
Internationally, I would say it's an as well as offering rather than an instead of offering. Sorry,
I can answer because I've also been interested in this.
Yeah.
So when online, became more of a thing, we did see a drop off in physical collections, and there was at that time, so there was a drop off. Then we saw a plateau, and in recent years, there's actually a pickup of physical visits and issues, actually. And from my understanding and what I've read, is that seems to be a global thing. And I imagine we'll see, like a lot of things. We'll see.
Also, on page 37, so I was talking about questions about physical visits, but also I think, Helen, what you just said, number of physical issues, when we take out the new library, moves from physical issues plus 6% to minus 11%. But again, the e-issues, which the figure for the new library isn't in there, has gone up at 22%. So I guess my question is, moving forward, do you think that will change our investment into physical libraries, and do we need to move investment or enhance investment to enable e-issues and e-visits?
I think it would be fair to say that for some communities that digital is, a feature of why they use library services.
Yeah.
I think in other communities it's very much that the physical asset as a space is important because of the different type of use that's made of library services in that community. We have quite significant differences in the way different libraries are used.
Yeah. And last question, in terms of number of events, again, when we take the new library out, it's dropped by just under 20%, whereas the report says it's gone up by 16%. Is that a resource issue, or is there a rationalisation of events that we run across all of our libraries? What's sort of going on there, do you think?
About there's a drop, but we don't treat the library we treat the libraries as a network of libraries. And so,
but you were sorry, I hate to interrupt you, but you were comparing 2022, 23 in here. With that didn't have the new library on stream. With a year that did have the new library on stream, and then using the increase as a success. But that's not a true picture until the next year when the library's been on for those 2 years, then you can see a trend. So I was trying to get a picture, putting the new library aside, because you're saying you're celebrating some increases that are not actually accurate. So I was trying to get an understanding there.
Yeah, so I take your point. I guess from a perspective of operating the network, and absolutely visitation's gone up because we've got a new library. When we developed the library and the operations of the library, we did very much look at rationalisation might be the word, but also how we stretch those resources across all of our libraries. So, and where we do the programming. So rationalisation might be one way of.
Yeah. Thank you. Chair, can we have an action that in the either sent to elected members, and I note that the email had the figures, but just so that it's really clear for public record for the minutes that the how the percentage change in incorporating with and without the new library, and then that gives us a clearer picture for the next financial year. I just think those numbers, they're not, well not I don't, I think, I know the numbers are not reflective of true accuracy, so yeah.
Sorry, if I could just offer a further point on Deputy Mayor Angela's line of questioning and the rationalisation. Within the figures, the movement of memberships or usage from Chartwell and St Andrews equates to about 10% of the existing membership from those sites. So it isn't, when we think about it as a network usage that we could have attributed normally to those sites has actually shifted to Te Kiti Aranui as well. So just in our mind when we think about these numbers, some usage has moved from site to site, so it isn't as simple as a new library and a whole new set of data, but it is kind of a cumulative data set. But yes, we can absolutely work on that, but I just wanted to raise that point as well.
Sorry, Rebecca, just on that, so are we tracking library users from other areas of the city who are using Te Kiti Aranui? Is that what you're saying?
Correct.
Okay. Yeah, it would be quite good to have that data. Thank you. Councillor Louise?
I have some quite boring questions. On page 38, paragraph 16, it talks about the work with the dementia collection. So cool. Had heard about it through the librarians who came to the Puketi Neighbourhood House Community Network meeting. I was just curious because it talks about a dementia-friendly status, and I was like, whoa, have we decided that? Is there an accreditation? Is there a body that sort of checks us?
So that's an excellent question. When the team were first investigating it, there are two avenues that one can go down. So there's dementia-friendly status, which means we're working towards full accreditation. So the accreditation is quite an involved process. We are working in that direction, but there are obviously more things required to achieve accreditation.
And so is that from Dementia New Zealand?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay, cool. And then same page, paragraph 20, it talks about hard to reach audiences. Can I know who our hard to reach audiences are? Do we have them as a slightly more specific descriptor?
I think the important thing is that we're aware that there are parts of all communities that perhaps we have not traditionally engaged with as well as we might have done. So we've actually had quite a focus on looking to look at, for instance, certain local communities that we don't see using library services, and we've actually worked quite hard to work towards engaging with them and providing something of relevance to them.
Because there was some, it might have been on that page or a following page about sort of discussing, particular groups. And I imagine, if you're looking to, increase books in other, or children's books, say, in other languages, to bring that particular demographic in. I was just curious about what other things, a hard-to-reach audience might need.
So sometimes it's simply about awareness of what library services can provide. It might be that they have need for internet services, or that they want programs to be delivered, or that they want want to have their attention drawn to a collection or particular services. So often it's not necessarily about doing something new, it might just be tailoring something for a specific audience.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Thank you.
Thank you. Mangai Oli?
Thanks, Chair. Yes, can I ask 4 questions, please? Is that all right?
Belong.
Yeah, no, it's just really interesting report. Paula, thank you. Thank you for your report. And my mum's a librarian, so obviously I'm heavily biased towards awesome places that they are. I'm really interested, Helen, in your comment about international research on will books become trendy again? Will books become trendy again? Are you tracking that at all internationally?
I think it's quite clear that, thank you for the question, Mangai Oli. It's become really clear in the literature that books are becoming trendy again, and as in physical copies rather than digital copies. And as Helen mentioned, there's been a plateau in the use of digital services uptake. We're still growing ours, but there will come a point at which people actually prefer the good old-fashioned book.
Cool. Second question is, we've got a report coming up about playgrounds and location, and I've always wondered, a mutually supporting relationship between a library and a playground out here, and I'm just interested in your views on that.
Certainly in terms of Te Kete Aranui, where we've got a playground immediately adjacent to library, I think it's a wonderful opportunity to work and actually engage with local community and deliver perhaps more than just a few swings and a slide, that we can actually provide that cafe, that experience. So I think it's a great opportunity.
Just talking about Kete Aranui, and that's great for that part of town, but speaking on behalf of the OG communities, and really interested seriously in terms of, St Andrews and Chartwell and Dinsdale and Glenview libraries, how those spaces will be activated to a level of equity that Kete Aranui has been?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. Certainly, each of those communities are quite different, and use of libraries at those spaces is quite dramatically different. We know that, for instance, Dinsdale has gone from being quite a quiet space to actually being quite energetic, with a lot of the local community coming in to use digital, free Wi-Fi, free internet. I know that the team within the last couple of weeks has just delivered a Money Matters month, or Money Month, program at Dinsdale on a Saturday, and it just went off. There's a way to activate each library, but it won't be the same in each community.
And further to that, and I understand the network of libraries, but I think further to Deputy Mayor's point in terms of fidelity of data, it would be useful to see the usage by library tracked over time to get a good idea of how these spaces are. And look, the libraries I've been into, staff are wonderful, and it's no criticism of them at all, but just how can we track the usage of these of the older libraries around town?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
We can do that.
Thank you. Councillor Sarah?
And thank you very much for the report. I was interested to understand a little bit more about the comment on antisocial behaviour.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Sarah. So there have been some interesting behaviours in and adjacent to some of our library spaces. Library staff have taken quite a team-based approach to addressing some of these issues. We're working with community development, security, and also with the community, and in particular local schools, to kind of develop a local best practice approach to how to address some of those issues. And I'm happy to say that some of the issues that had been experienced in what seemed like an escalating way have certainly been dialed back.
And are there particular libraries where the issues that have been seen have been more pronounced?
We have a couple of sites, so Te Kete Aranui for a start, but that's now well managed. Hillcrest has also had experienced some issues out of the blue recently, and it's gone from sort of nothing to 100 miles an hour quite quickly. But again, we're taking that kind of local approach and that broad-based approach to addressing those issues, and things have certainly notched back.
Okay, that's good to hear. Thank you. The other part of my question was in terms of creating that third space. So part of the strategy is around creating a welcoming place. And what more could we do with existing budget at the moment, if anything, to enable more play at the libraries? For example, Christchurch Library, they partner with, there's a charity and they've got lots of Lego and blocks and things. I've seen, Excite, there's various things where kids just get involved, and I'm wondering how we create more of a destination for families to take kids, so it's not just about issuing books or drawing with pencils that keep breaking, sorry, but, to really attract people to come and stay and make a morning or afternoon of it.
Look, I think there's a couple of things in your question there, but in terms of ensuring that we aren't just, as you say, a space where simple craft activities, that there is more of a destination feel. I think that's certainly part of what we hope to be focusing on. Engaging spaces is one of the strands or one of the outcomes of the strategy. It's not something that we've invested overly heavily in the last year, but that will certainly be a priority for the next year. In terms of each library, I think one of the things that we can do is one of the things that we need to do, and I think we do quite well, is that we look at each library in terms of its local community and develop what is appropriate for that particular community library, rather than it being here's the rollout of vanilla at each site. So, certainly that's something we need to look at for the next year.
And I might get in trouble for asking this, but there's a little bit of pop-up play funding in the next item. How could that support potentially libraries? Is it something we could think about with cross-pollination?
If the recommendation is approved, Councillor Sierra, well, absolutely.
Excellent. Okay, thank you.
All done?
I'm all done, thank you.
Councillor Maria.
Kia ora, tēnā koe Paula. It's great to see you again on the other side of the table. And I appreciate your mahi, as you haven't been there for that long. So high pressure being here. My question just is in relation to Councillor Sierra's question as well. I just want a bit more of a solid answer in terms of what support is being done to provide training for staff to deal with antisocial behaviour, to keep them safe.
Kia ora, Councillor Maria. Look, that's a really important question, and in terms of the training that's offered, we try to take a kind of a whole approach, a whole SIPTED environmental scan. So it's about staff being confident and well trained. We've had a very busy year this year in terms of training for staff across a whole range of factors, but certainly that difficult situation and how to manage those well and safely has been a big part of the training that's been delivered this year. We work with our colleagues in City Safety team to ensure that our spaces are safe for customers and staff, and we're making a few changes to the way some of the spaces might be laid out to enable staff to be kept safe if a situation does occur. What else have we done?
Ka pai te. Ko tai anō te pātai. Just one more question, just on a lighter note. In previous years, the public library hosted matariki in the city, and this year it was hosted by the Gardens. Having been the MC of that event for the past 5 years, I noticed that it was, we were able to bring the whānau together at the library, and it was a bit of a different vibe at the Gardens. Is there a move to move it back to the library? And it talks about being a destination, not just for getting books out, but actually making it a full interactive opportunity.
Certainly, that the organisation that arranges that matariki in the city did not approach us this year. So, yeah. We still had a celebrated matariki at the libraries. It was just in local style.
Kia ora, Paula.
Before we move on, just on that safety aspect, I wanted to know if, Calvin, if you wanted an opportunity to add anything from City Safe perspective.
I'm not sure I'm going to add anything of value to that, Chair Kesh. We have a close relationship with the library team. We have a presence there. We support them and deliver training to them around how to keep yourself safe, and we continue to do that.
Thank you. Thank you. Mayor Paula?
Just interested in the Central Library. From time to time it comes up, and I guess it will probably again at the next LTP/annual plan about the place and size and scale and scope of the Central Library. How's that tracking, the Central Library, including the adjacent spaces? Please. Thank you.
So within the long-term plan, this round there is some essential renewals that are being undertaken to the facade of the library for water tightness reasons, but that would give us the opportunity to, I guess, make the building a more appealing building and perhaps have a greater level of engagement with the outside areas. There's been some discussion already about the later playgrounds item and the activation of garden place, and I guess the library sees itself as a key part of that conversation. And in terms of the spaces at the front of the library, Paula and her team are looking at the programming that's delivered from there and how best to deliver it. However, there would be capital investment which wasn't funded required to do any significant relocation of services within the building itself.
And what's the use of the building like in terms of, you know, I know we're going to need a library in Central City, but in terms of the usage, Kete Aranui being the shining star, but because it's new and shiny, but what's happening with the CBD?
So the Central Library is probably our third busiest library by footfall in the city. Of course, it does offer a number of other services that are back-of-house services as well, that are not necessarily obvious to the community. But in terms of programming, I know that the staff are working quite hard to find new ways to activate those spaces, and we've had some successful events and programs run to kind of get a bit of energy. It is difficult across such a big vault-like space, but the staff do what they can. Yeah.
We continue to investigate opportunities as they come up, and we're part of other conversations with other parts of council and/or community groups or scenarios as others are looking for space. However, to Paula's point about the services that are held within the library, there are the heritage and archive collections which do require special care, which would be somewhat challenging to move or relocate. So we continue to look, we continue to explore opportunities. However, it would require investment, and so at this time it's not been prioritised by council.
Yeah, sure, I get that. Just in terms, it's good to hear that it's the third most popular at the moment. We have had approaches from developers and others to kind of co-invest, to explore. Are those completely off the table now, or are they just, because of our capital investment required, we're not talking with anyone at this point in time?
Yeah. I mean, we're always open to those conversations, and as Rebecca said, when those opportunities arrive, we have conversations, but it would require investment, and so that we're not progressing those conversations at the moment. We're our financial situation to change, then we'd pick up those conversations.
Thank you, sorry.
All good? Councillor Maxine?
Thank you. I'm interested in the antisocial behaviour and the kotahitanga approach that you've taken with the schools in order to address that. I wonder what other opportunities that you might be looking for with the education communities about shared services or programs that might be able to enhance that kotahitanga as well.
I'm assuming you're not necessarily referring to those sort of behavioural
No,
situations.
no,
Yeah.
it's something a little bit more positive
Yeah.
perhaps
Yeah.
than
So,
that really.
Look, I can give you a couple of examples where we've worked with schools coming out of those situations, and I think the relationship has become much easier with the school in terms of being able to pick up the phone and talk to each other, but also in terms of exploring what we might do together in the future. I know that, as in the case at Rototuna, that there has been quite a turnaround in the relationship with the school, which is, useful for future opportunities to kind of look at how we can work together and how we can develop that relationship.
Thank you.
No other questions for Paula? Thank you. I'm happy to move. Louise to second. I want to thank Paula and her team for the amazing work that they're doing with our libraries. I just wanted to also touch on, we've heard some questions and discussion around antisocial behaviour at some of our sites just now. In terms of the Te Kete Aranui space, I want to acknowledge the work that Emma from our community social development team, Emma's our new youth advisor. So she's actually brought that community together, formed a group called the Rototuna Interagency Network, which I've been attending those meetings as well. And that's involving, there's reps from City Safe, from the libraries team, the staff themselves, Emma's there, and then you've got the principals of Rototuna Junior High, Rototuna Senior High, and a whole heap of other community leaders, including reps from the business network, the local business network. And those conversations have been really cool, like, just getting to understand what the issues are and what role everyone plays in trying to manage them. Granted that I still hear stories of some of the antisocial behaviour that's continuing. So thank you for the questioning around staff safety and how library staff are being trained to manage those situations, because some of them can be quite intimidating. So thank you for touching on that as well. Councillor Louise.
I wish I had included in my disability update about the dementia work, because it's so cool, and I think it's a really wonderful intersection of both disability and age-friendly, and just a way of providing, resources to individuals but also to their families. Support, that wider support, I think is really critical when you're going through something like that. I also just wanted to acknowledge that I've even seen in my friends an uptick in library use. Definitely not at all contributed by the cost of living and that books are really expensive. But I think libraries are such an amazing resource for our communities, and they do so much more than just books. And I think, lots of the stats showed that it's a place to go whether you want to get out a book or not. And if you want to get out a book, there's heaps of them. I'm very fond of our cookbook collection because cookbooks are really expensive. Just wanted to acknowledge that work. I know that we have lots of work to do in the disability space, but there's so much initiative that I see from staff, which is just beyond heartening.
Thank you. Councillor Anna?
Yeah,
just thank the staff for their great work, and I guess I just wanted to acknowledge too that I guess our shift from libraries, as maybe they have traditionally been, to more of that hub sort of model is always going to bring up new issues and issues that we need to figure out. And I think our staff, from what I heard of the involvement of the community development team, etc., have, and obviously with you, Kesh, as well, have, approached this issue in the best way that we can at this time with the resources that we have. But I think it's something that, we are sometimes idyllic about how a hub might be and it's all going to be wonderful, but actually there's some big issues in our community, and of course they're going to come with people to places that we provide. And that's a great opportunity to engage and to further support our community, which is going to generate wellbeing, which is ultimately what we're here for as council. So I think even though the antisocial behaviour is there, it's not necessarily a negative thing, because we're seeing it and we're engaging with it and we're making sure that we can be responsive to it. So thank you to the team.
Thank you. Mayor Paula?
Thank you for the update. Very supportive of libraries in general. I am interested in the fact that we own a number of libraries that are in good shape and some that are in coming towards the end of their good shape, is how I'm going to put that. And that does concern me, and I saw this plan and there's lots of really good elements in it, but I haven't got really good insight into what the library is going to look like in 5, 10, 15 years from this particular strategy. It's more program based, it looks to me. And I would love to see some more thinking around that, because we know sometimes they're an easy pick off. So understanding what the value to the local communities are, especially picking up on Mangai Ollie's comment around the less well-off areas of our community, or the older libraries in older areas, should I put it that way, really care about that. I think the accessibility of the community to services, including books, I love books, by the way, including books, but all the other social interactions and support they can get at a library is important, but it needs to be equitable across the city. Love Te Keti Aranui, but the Rototuna residents have it darn lucky to have that right there in the middle of them, and other communities are doing it much harder. So, I would like to think that if some of the suburban areas are struggling, that we don't immediately write them off and say, well, they're not being used quite as well. Good to hear about Dinsdale, by the way. Really nice to hear about Dinsdale being better used. But we need to think about how do we make services work across our city. So that long-term planning is what the next step I'm particularly interested in. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other speakers? No? I just wanted to quickly add to Councillor Anna's comments around, we see, we've had lots of discussions around what the future of libraries would look like, and is it moving to that hub concept of library, community centre, playground, aquatics, schools, and creating, real community hubs, centres. And if that's the direction that we're going in, then obviously the investment has to follow. So and that's where it's a bit more tough financially. So there have been many conversations around equitable access to libraries. Glenview, Dinsdale, all areas of the city are on the radar, but it's a matter of timing with investment, because what I've heard from the staff is that they're ready to go, but it's the dollars that are stopping progress. So thank you for that discussion. We will go to the vote with a show of hands. All those in favour? Anyone against?
Carried unanimously.
Thank you. We'll go to item 10, the Playgrounds Program Update. Thank you, Maria.
Kia ora koutou, ko Maria Tuku ingoa. Most of you will know I'm Maria, Parks and Recreation Unit Director. If I could ask you to cast your minds back to the LTP, those of you who were here may remember, just briefly, will remember that funding was allocated for renewals and improvements to level of service for playgrounds. That allocation of funding came with a hook, if you like, that council requested staff prioritise improving shade provision and CBD play space for the first 3 years of the play space program, noting that a report would come back to this committee. So the report that I present to you today attempts to honour that resolution. It provides some options for you. What we've tried to do is tag particularly the shade improvements to renewals, because we're already doing a thing at a site, so there will be less establishment setup costs. As I said, there are options for you in the report, and I expect there will be questions, so I will leave it there.
Thank you. And committee members might be aware, if you're not, I have circulated a motion to this item, which Mayor Paula is seconding. We'll go to questions. Councillor Louise.
On page 48, paragraph 36, I think it's in the table though, there's a comment about under like constraints. I won't be so bold as to say cons. There's a comment about fencing may be required. I guess my question is just that from the feedback I've heard about Magical Bridge, the comments are not so much great accessible equipment, but often it's fenced. I was just wondering about fencing as an accessibility aspect, and also how often do we consider fencing generally for a playground?
So we do consider fencing. We obviously, all of our sites are subject to community feedback, and so often that is a request that's made. It does depend on the location of the playground and what surrounds it, and obviously where possible we wouldn't put fencing in because it could be a barrier.
Yeah.
So it's horses for courses.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Before we move on to further, oh sorry, you finished?
My only other question was going to be, do we know could you tell me how many fenced playgrounds there were in the city?
Not off the top of my head,
Okay.
but I can.
It's a hard question. Yeah. Cool, I would like to know, thanks.
Yeah, I just wanted to quickly mention is with the motion, it actually allows the Playgrounds Working Group to be set up again and allow a lot of the questions around, the detail stuff to be discussed further and to have a deeper delve into it. And everyone's invited to those. They are members, but it's open to everyone. So if there are questions that you're thinking, should I ask or not? Is it right for this forum? There is that opportunity to have that fuller discussion as well. Deputy Mayor Angela?
I think I was on that working group, but I never went. But I sub in Councillor Hutt. We come under public criticism for not doing a playground fast enough, and we come under public criticism for doing a playground too fast. I guess I'm referring to things like a small neighbourhood playground where it looks okay to the neighbourhood, but we whip in there, spend X amount of money redoing it, and then they say, oh, it's a waste of money. And half of them go, oh, yeah, it's a great spend of money. So how, in the tough financial environment that we are in, I note that you consult and co-design with the public. I have in the back of my mind the Puketi, what street was that? Ashurst. I know that was for different reasons, but how are you going to address those concerns that are raised in the public and the I guess the concerns from some that if it looks okay, why are we wasting money putting in new equipment? We like what's there now. So how are you going to work through those things if there's a budget line?
In terms of feedback that comes to staff, I would have to say we get very minimal feedback about our renewals program being, particularly in the playground space. I would have to fish out the exact figures, but anecdotally, overwhelmingly, it's more positive than not. Our renewals program is worked out on a few factors. So we obviously take the pure life of asset. Then we put that aside, how is it stacking up for maintenance? So is it starting to cost us money? Then there'll be community feedback around whether that play space is actually providing any play value at all, because arguably something from the 80s and 90s isn't actually offering a lot for too many.
I managed with a swing and a metal slide and a pole if we were lucky, and concrete.
It's quite the formula, so we don't just look at one single aspect when we're looking to renew a playground. We do have a range of considerations. We are also looking at kind of equity across the city, so to make sure all our renewals are not in one basket. So there is a bit of a complex Excel spreadsheet that concertinas that again I could take the working group through if the motion.
Okay, and I guess is some of the reason why if you end up in a community and you're having a discussion with the residents in that area, some of that information is also passed on to them so that they understand. Yeah. This is why it's your turn, sort of thing.
Yeah, we do always get the why not us question.
Oh,
so
for sure.
invariably when we put out a renewals program, there'll be a range of community members that say, how come them not, when's our turn?
Yeah.
In an ideal world, we do have a number of playgrounds that are of the same age. And in an ideal world, their renewal would have popped up at the same time, but we all know we don't live in that world, so we do the very best we can to prioritise that program.
Just one last question, thanks, Chair. I'm going to be saying this a lot, obviously, a lot of us will be, but challenging financial environment that we're in, and I see the budget line for renewals and the budget line for increase in level of service, you know, they're substantial. Can you explain to me, let's just say there's a basic old 1980s, 1990s neighbourhood playground with a swing, the slide, a tyre, something else. The difference between if you used the budget from a renewal to the budget from a level of service, I'm assuming level of service is an increase, but how do you work? What do those two look like in a tangible example? Because I know that we used renewal money to do the magical playground, and yet that was also an increase in the level of service.
So I'm kind of going to try and channel Chris Allen here. So renewals are like-for-like replacement with a modern day equivalent standard.
Is that not also then an increase in the level of service?
So the level of service, where the level of service would come in is that you would be adding capacity, equipment, or path connections that haven't previously been there. You're improving the offer, if you like. So it is hard to distinguish, Deputy Mayor Angela, when you are replacing something from the 90s with something from 2025, because the technology and the equipment that's available is advancing all the time. So it doesn't always look exactly the same, but it is, you know, the same number of equipment or opportunities, the level of service. So in the case of Magical Bridge, the council funded areas paid for the equivalent footprint that was there. The Magical Bridge contribution expanded that footprint and paid for a lot of that accessible equipment, which is much more expensive.
Okay. Okay, thanks.
Mangai Oli?
Thanks, Chair. Kesh, I think go old school and get some old trains and old tanks would be awesome. I'm really keen to be part of the playground working group, and I think the motion's good. I actually got up at 4 o'clock this morning to reread this report, so I think there's some really important decisions that we're making over this. The motion's probably taken the wind out of most of my questions, but I would ask, just with regards to the CBD playground, has Vanessa Williams, was she consulted on that at all, and what was her view?
So we consistently talk with Vanessa about what's happening in that area. As recently as yesterday, I think in the central city there's no debate that some sort of enhancement to help bring people into the city. In terms of a play space, there's varying opinions on what equipment or what that play space would look like. So we already have the fountain, and Vanessa agrees that's a great feature. She's saying, do we have to have formal swings? It's probably not for that central city location, but some playable elements. So I think there is definitely some space to flesh, if it is the direction of council that there's something to be done in that central city location to flesh out the what.
Yeah, cool, thanks for that. Also mindful of, I was chair of Aberdeen School for quite a while, and noting that Aberdeen and Frankton were two of the largest primary schools by population. I'm not sure if they still are now. But looking at Frankton Primary School and its proximity to Swarbrick Park, and just how utilised Swarbrick Park is over the weekends through touch tournaments, cricket tournaments, rugby tournaments and so on, and the good old playground there that's got 50 coats of paint on it. What your view is on upgrading Swarbrick Park playground, given the use of Swarbrick Park as a recreational ground?
Absolutely, I think that would be desirable, and potentially in our original program there would have been upgrades for that site. The direction we were given at the LTP was to prioritise shade and central city play, and you'll notice that particularly in that first 3 years the funding is a bit lumpy, so we couldn't put it all in. So, yeah.
Thank you, Maria. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Emma?
Thank you, Chair Kesh. I just wanted to check with the membership of, or the timing of the meetings of the playground working group, if we're able to get it in everyone's diaries, just because it would be of high interest. Then I can bring up any other following questions I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Andrew?
Maria, I'm looking at page 55, which is the budgets, and I do have a concern over the planning, design and engagement. There's some quite high numbers in there, 206,000 for renewals in the first year, plus 150,000 for one new park, just for design and engagement. How much of that goes to consultants?
So it does go to consultants, Andrew, and also acknowledging that not all of it goes to consultants, obviously, but acknowledging that the requirements of council for us to engage have increased over time. So we've had direction that council desires wider engagement with the community, so that can be open days, collateral needs to be presented. There's also accessibility audits and other things that council has asked us to weave in ultimately, and then there's the design. So it does cost.
Yeah, I certainly support the engagement part of it, but can we put more pressure on the consultants to sharpen their prices? Because it is a quiet market out there and the council does have leverage.
Yes, we can always look for those opportunities, Andrew. What I would say is that the Playgrounds program that has been run since 2017, a lot of my colleagues from across the country ask us how we get the outcomes that we get for the money that we get. So we are doing quite well with our delivery in comparison.
Good, thank you.
Councillor Ewan?
Maria, for the last 5 years at least, and certainly in the last 3 years,
I and others have asked about why can't we have some simple additions to the fountain in Garden Place, where kids could sit on near the water, you know, a tortoise, or I've seen in many other cities rabbits recently within the side of the fountain. Why are we not doing those simple things?
So this proposal attempts to take care of that, Councillor Ewan, in terms of having some play initiative money for that less formal playground space. So I would envisage it being used as playable elements, and if we take the Central Library Garden Place example, exactly what you've just described would be quite a good use for that fund, just to enhance that, the stuff that's already there.
Excellent. And a follow-on, I mean, from your expertise, do you feel that in light of the fact that a number of, do we actually have any data on the number of young families that visit both the library and that fountain daily? Has anybody actually tried to work out the flow of traffic and the potential?
We do have a tool that we have been using, Vista. It does, I mean, it's hard to differentiate, but you can kind of track who's staying and what areas they're congregating in. So certainly that's something we could pull. We haven't specifically for Garden Place in relation to the features you've spoken of, but we did use it when we were developing the concepts.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? No? So we will, thank you, Maria. We will go to the motion on the table. All right, so look, it's it's no secret that Hamiltonians love our playgrounds. Sorry, was that? Can we share it on the, please? Yeah, it's on your email as well. No. No, it hasn't. As I was saying, yeah, it's no secret that Hamiltonians love our playgrounds. You know, the last lot of stats said that we have the youngest population. We know that we're the fastest growing. And there are things that make us look attractive to newcomers or to newcomers who want to settle in Hamilton. And I firmly believe that playgrounds is one of those factors. You know, if you've got young kids, you know how important those playgrounds are to keeping you sane on the weekends. But, you know, more importantly than just the active play is also the bringing together of communities, which is what I find in a lot of our playgrounds. And I am a high user. About a third of Hamiltonians are not born here, we know that. And playgrounds, along with other things around the city, but you know, playgrounds have a huge role in bringing people together. When you see the kids getting along with each other, it starts conversations between the parents, and you get to know your neighbors, you get to know people who live on your street, and it's a really nice community feeling. So I'm all for supporting our playgrounds program. The intention with the motion is to allow us to have more conversations. Like Mangai Oli said, the report there's a lot in there, and there's a lot to discuss and decide. So just to have the time to do that properly, like Emma said, this is a high interest topic because we are interested in playgrounds and in doing it well. So that just allows that little pause for us to do that work. I'm also quite keen to have those conversations with Central City developers and external funders, because Garden Place is, or Central City is, you know, a key point in our city, and how do we use whatever funding we have allocated, how do we use that, but also partner with others who are interested in developing that space. Thank you. Mayor Paula, you were seconding, were you wanting to?
Just make one, thank you, Kesh. Just to make one comment about this. Going back to the group means we're able to drive the best outcome, which I think will be very good. particularly keen that we look for funding partnerships in these things where we can get more for our dollar. This is existing money. It was decided in the long-term plan, so it's not a new spend. It's something that we have already agreed upon, and therefore it's really hard to go back and say, right, we agreed upon it as a council, and now we're going to undo that. So we're not seeking to do that. But what this does is enable us to take a really careful and considered approach to how and when that new stuff gets done. And we've heard some really good feedback in the questions, actually, in terms of working alongside others, in terms of building off the things that we've already got going for us. Really good comment made about how popular the fountains are for playing. And we've got 2 broken fountains over on the West Town Belt, but we've got one in every time it's playing. That's what fountains do, isn't it? They play. I think that's the terminology. Every time they play, the children play. And, you know, parents better have a set of dry clothing with them, really, because within seconds the children are in there having a great time. So if we can enhance that kind of thing, I'm keen on that. But within strict budget constraints, this is not the time for new budget.
Thank you. Councillor Ewan?
It will come as no surprise to you, Councillor Cash, that I agree with you on this initiative. We have spoken at length about the importance of trying to leverage and activate Garden Place. And so although I support all of the motion, I send a very strong message to staff saying how I am waiting with bated breath for our result near that the fountain in Garden Place, because we have been making it really clear to everyone that it needs to happen, and it doesn't have to be expensive. Every day I walk between my apartment and town, and I am reminded with the number of small children who, doesn't matter what the weather is, just love walking through that fountain and playing games, waiting for the water to come up and down. And if we could just put a couple of little fixtures near the fountain where they could sit and play, that would be really exciting. And why should we do this? Well, it's right in our city centre. It's where we know we're going to have some new hotels. It's where we know we're going to have new apartments very soon. It's by our library, and we know that safety improves with activation. So can we just get it done? Can we not get bogged down in yet another report? Because Sarah and Mikesh, we've talked about this. I think for 4 years we sent a clear message saying, could we have something done here? And you could probably do it for $20,000 or $30,000, right? Because the fountain's already there. Just come up with some solutions. I mean, I'm not a designer, but I reckon Ollie and I could come up with something pretty quick if you want help. So please, can you do this?
Thank you. Councillor Sarah?
Thanks, Chair. Firstly, just want to say thank you to the team who do look after and design and deliver the playgrounds. They're an absolutely fantastic asset and do help to keep us sane on the weekends. And I absolutely tautoko Kesh's, Chair Kesh's comments around the feeling community at the playgrounds. There's nothing more that I love than going down to the lake, or now the Magical Bridge playground too, and it's just packed, and there's kids playing there until it's almost too dark to see. So it's absolutely fantastic, and I always look at it and think, well, that was a worthwhile investment. And I support the motion too. I do think it will be worthwhile for elected members to just dig in and ask more questions and do more thinking around how we prioritise that central city play investment. I also want to say thank you so much to the work that's gone into prioritising shade. Summers are getting hotter, and when you get to after 11 o'clock, sometimes it feels really hot and exhausting to be out in those open spaces with hard surfaces, and you know the sun's becoming hotter, but it's also, you know, a safety issue in terms of skin cancer and looking after kids, ensuring they're not getting overheated or burnt. Obviously, you put on sunblock and everything, but it just helps when you've got shade, and the shade that over at the playground at the lake where the toddlers play is great, and I'd love to see more of that. I'd also love to discuss at the working group the idea of setting a target, so that we set a target for the next 10 years, how many playgrounds will have shade, what percentage will be covered. It might be 60 or 70% target for your general playground. For toddler small areas, maybe it's a higher percentage. I think it would be fantastic to have a metric which we can start to measure our progress by. So thank you so much for that work in particular. Cheers.
Thank you. Councillor Jeff?
Thanks, Chair Kesh. Yeah, look, I agree with a lot of the sentiments expressed about playgrounds, the importance of the playgrounds, and my playground days are gone temporarily at the moment, but they may return when I'm a grandparent. But I like what you say about their ability to bring people together, and I've certainly seen that. I certainly see that with dog walking as well, actually. There's a whole huge community out there who meet up and get to know each other. I thank you for your motion, because this is a hard one, and I've been torn with it. I've been thinking about the location of the play space in the CBD for a while, and I like both areas. I think Boys Park, we're going to need something really cool there, but at the same time, Garden Place, well, we all know it needs something. It feels barren at times, it feels like a desert at times, and sometimes it doesn't feel safe either. And I agree with you, and I think fountains and water is key. And people vote with their feet. They show us what they want to do, and they give us the opportunity. We can build on what we're seeing without having to reinvent too many wheels. So, but I'm really pleased with this motion, thank you, because I couldn't work it out. Normally I feel like I'm decisive, I know what I think, but this time I just didn't, and I needed help. And so I think this will give us some help to think it through and come up with a solution. And as you say, possibly, and as the Mayor says, possibly attract some extra funding to help us with this, so that we can get good results at both locations. So thank you, I support the motion.
Were there any other speakers? No? Thank you for your comments. Like I said, we all share a passion for playgrounds or play spaces. Garden Place we've talked about a few times now. And my personal opinion is, Garden Place is such a heart of our city, and it does need activation. And I truly think that if we had play elements in that space, it will bring people to the city. It will encourage families to stay longer, but also to support the businesses in the CBD. And when, as a mum with young kids, you want excuses to do stuff and to do fun stuff. And on a typical Saturday, we are in the CBD. We're going to the game arcades, we're going to the movies, we're having dinner, but it's that middle sort of, lull of let's just get them active and lose some energy. And at the moment, it's running up and down Victoria and the river until they're tired. But, I'm sure other families are feeling the same that I do. We just want something that's, an offer for all ages. Is where I'm going with that. So thank you for your comments. We will go to the vote on that with a show of hands. All those in favour? And anyone against?
Carried unanimously.
Thank you. We're going to item 11, the Animal and Dog Control Review Programme, please.
Tēnā koutou i ngā kai kaunihira mā, ko Narelle tōku ingoa.
The purpose of today's report is to seek approval to consult on the draft animal nuisance bylaw, dog control bylaw, and dog control policy. Pre-engagement with staff, key stakeholders, members, and council partners have guided the development of the drafts and proposed changes. The key changes for each document are set out in paragraphs 18, 20, 23, and as we're also required to identify areas where dogs are prohibited, can be off-lead or on-lead within these documents, the proposed amendment to these areas are detailed in paragraph 28. Consultation is a legislatively required step in the review process. We have bundled the consultation together, considering the alignment of the topics and to enable efficiencies in our review process. The staff recommendation is that the attached drafts go to consultation, as well as the statement of proposal, and we're requesting approval for that consultation from September 18th to October 18th. Should this be approved, the following consultation, we would hold a hearing to receive any feedback and apologies, let me refocus. So following consultation, a hearing would be held if required, and all feedback received, including deliberation from members, will support the development of the final drafts, which would be presented again to committee for recommendation to adopt. I'll take the rest of the report as read, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Are there any questions? I did have one, Narelle. Just the proposed changes to the dog exercise areas. There are quite a few new off-lead areas being proposed.
Yeah.
So I understand this is going to consultation.
Yes.
But just your thinking around, like we just talked about playgrounds. A few of those new off-lead areas are in parks where there are playgrounds. So just your thinking around, you know, the safety aspect, or is there one to be concerned about?
Yeah, so there are already many other existing off-lead areas that are near playgrounds. We do, where there are parks that include playgrounds, try to have the area not sort of include the direct periphery of the playground. However, we do have that set rule where dogs cannot be within 10 metres of a playground, but we do try and set the off-lead area sort of further than that where necessary. Obviously, all dogs must be under control, regardless of the location.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Maxine?
Yeah, just on that, I know that this is about policy. Will we also be using that as an opportunity to advance responsible dog ownership conversations as well?
The consultation?
Yeah, it's kind of equal and parallel to issues that we've been seeing in the community post-COVID and dog ownership.
Yeah.
Lack of socialising, etc. I see Calvin coming up, and
well,
thank you.
I will add that that has been an overarching story in the review itself as well. So you'll see in the track change document that quite a few changes were made to the policy, and a lot of that was around education for dog owners and presenting those expectations a little clearer.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I'm just really supporting Narelle on this. We're using every opportunity that we have to engage in discussions about responsible dog ownership. We use the newsletter that goes out with our registrations each year. We use all of our opportunities where we're having events where dog ownership, dog owners are present. We are doing it through this process as well. We're trying to leverage every opportunity to engage people in conversations about what is the right and appropriate level of dog ownership and the control that goes with that.
Thank you. It's not, I guess, just a Hamilton issue, much wider. And the only other question I had was around the multiple dog permitting. You say that you would have a fee for a variation to the permit, and you talk about the dog relocating. if there's an additional dog coming into that family, is that also included in that requirement?
Yeah. So an additional dog coming in, or even a change of the dogs that are detailed on the multiple permit, would require a variation, which would have a cost against it. If they are actually, do you mean the dog is leaving or the whole family is leaving?
Yeah, well, it doesn't. Yeah. Well, it says in there if the owner and the dog.
Yeah,
but it could be, you know.
That situation would require a request for a new permit, as the permits are tagged to the property.
Thank you. That's all.
Okay. Councillor Sarah?
Thanks, Kesh. My question is around enforcement and I guess how well are we resourced to enforce bylaws and ensure that public is safe in terms of dangerous dogs or irresponsible owners?
I think we're currently well resourced to be able to deal with dangerous dogs. It's like a lot of things. We rely on the events being reported to us to become aware of their existence, so we can take some action and activity. So that's always we won't investigate or can't investigate what we don't know about.
Yeah. Okay. But in terms of what we have reported, we have the resource to deal with it?
We have a high workload, but we are able to deal with the matters that we have before us.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Maria?
Tēnā korua, just a question about the feedback form. Just wanted to know what was the purpose and the relevance of the last question on 75 that asked for ethnicity?
That is a standard question in the insights. So that is probably a better question for comms and insights. But I can get that information to you.
Yes, please.
Yeah.
Thank you. Councillor, Maxine, did you?
Oh, look, just a quickly little one just at the end to respond to the questions that Councillor Thompson raised. And thinking about our city safe team, do they have any authority, on their duties to be able to point out to dog owners or walkers the area that they're in and maintain any of that order?
Yes, they can, but the reality is we tend to rather call in animal control because they're the specialists who have. It's all very well us having a polite conversation, but if we want to go any further than that, we will be calling in animal control because they'll be the experts.
Okay. And they would do that from their devices?
We work very closely with them, and yes, it's not unusual to have them responding to events, particularly in the central city here where we have a dog issue. And so, yeah, we work closely.
Okay, thank you. So rather than them making the direct contact, they would be reporting incidences on, or is it not as proactive as that?
Sorry, I lost you in as the who the they were in that.
Oh, the city safe team. Report it if they observe something, rather than having a direct conversation with the dog owner, or not, that they would go directly to animal control.
That would be the preference, yes, because they're the people who are the experts in dealing with that.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Ewan?
Yeah, thanks, Chair Cash. Following on from actually Councillor Maxine's questioning, I also had a note to ask a little bit more about bylaw enforcement. Just help me understand, currently it's pretty fragmented, so we have silos of expertise around animal control, we have food standard bylaw, they're separate. Just in terms of our bylaws and our monitoring, there's not one unit that does everything. Is that correct?
That's correct. I think there are, my last count, 14 or 15 different bylaws across the organisation. Forgive me, I'm not sure the exact number.
Sure.
There are 5 that my unit looks after.
Yep. So when you look at cities around the world, a number of them have just a bylaws enforcement entity where they have specialists who are trained across all their bylaws. Is there any cities in New Zealand that has that? And if so, who are they? And if not, why haven't we turned our mind to having bylaw enforcement officers who are across all of our bylaws?
I'm sure at various times in the past that will have occurred here, and I know if you go back as far as 2014, there was a compliance review that was undertaken by some outside consultants to look at that, whether or not the total of compliance, how that should be divvied up across the council, and the result was I don't recall exactly what the recommendation was. It was before my time. But we've ended up with the system we've got here. I'm sure that in some councils there will be standalone compliance groups, and they, in my view, will tend to be most notably in smaller councils where a person will have a role that might involve that singular person being engaged with multiple bylaws. If it exists elsewhere across the country, I'm unaware of it, but there again, I haven't gone looking specifically to try and answer that question.
I think what I wanted to say about, I think it's worth us, I'm interested in that report myself, you know, and I'll take your question away from today and just have a look at how and why we do it the way we're doing. But if I'm understanding your question correctly, there's also certain activities that are, so for animal control, for instance, you know, there's a reason that we'd have animal control officers deal with a dog situation, especially if it's a dangerous dog, or, you know, they're trained to deal. And then there are a whole lot of other activities that sit within animal control. So it would be looking at the compliance component as a component of the total animal control activity, for example. So you'd have to pull out for bylaw for compliance, you'd have to pull out that activity from within the wider activity to develop a separate bylaw unit. So it would be about the wider efficiencies that could, that are associated with the total activity. I can't say whether one is better or the other without, you know, having a look at that a little bit closer, which I'm interested in.
So, Madam Chair, are we going to note that as a note that you're going to have a quick review? Okay, thank you. I'll add my comments in the debate.
No other questions? Would someone like to move this? Or I'm happy to move. Second, Councillor Maxine. No, I've got, thank you. I don't have any comments right now. Are there any other? Councillor Maxine, did you want to say anything?
I think the issue of dog ownership has heightened in recent times, and post-COVID there's quite a large cohort of dogs that haven't had socialisation, haven't been out into communities widely, and that's a problem, not just here in Hamilton, but across the city and across the country. And we need and have a responsibility to make sure that our citizens are safe, that our children are safe in the playgrounds, etc. But that dog owners understand their responsibilities and any opportunities to be able to promote those responsibilities is incumbent on us as a City Council to be able to use when we can. The review of this policy offers us that opportunity, and I think that we must also do that. We do have officers also through our City Safe program that are available to us as a resource, eyes and ears out in our community, and that's a good resource also for us to be able to use to identify where there might be problems and to bring in professionals who are able to deal with it the best that they can. So I do support, of course, these areas going out. I do also support the wider number of off-leash areas. As a previous dog owner, it was always great to be able to throw the ball and have my little dog run at 100 miles an hour after it, and finding opportunities where that can happen more often, you know, is a great way to be. Anyway, so thank you.
Thanks, Chair Cash. Look, fully support the motion. Obviously, animal control is an important function. Well, it's a statutory function of council. It's our core business. I am always reminded that actually, having chaired animal control for a number of years, it's not the good dog owners we have to worry about, the ones that actually register their dogs, the ones that take their dogs and vaccinate them and put chips in, et cetera, It's the mongrels that choose not to register their dogs, and any work we do in those areas, they just ignore. So the wandering dogs, the dangerous dogs, are frequently those people who just choose not to abide by any set of rules. But I acknowledge the important work of the bylaw. My final comment is actually to staff, to the organisation generally. I'm a little concerned that we as an organisation have created all of these little silos when it comes to bylaws. And, you know, great cities in this world, and there are a lot you can look at, you see council vehicles drive past and it says bylaw enforcement. And their job is they cover all the city's bylaws, right? Now, we're not complicated. We're a relatively small city in a relatively small country. And with 15 different bylaws, I'm not convinced that there is an argument that, that we can't generally train some of our sister city staff, I've got sister cities, you know, exactly, city safety team to cover some of that bylaw enforcement. And just because we haven't doesn't mean we shouldn't look at it doing it. And I just think we should, I'm asking staff to give that some serious thought so that they have more than just the city safety role. They have a role of bylaw enforcement, and we can train these people to do that. That's just my comment.
Okay, nothing further to add. We'll go to the vote on that one with a show of hands. All those in favour? Anyone against?
Motion is carried unanimously.
Thank you. And we go to the last item, item 12, reserve classification and naming. Welcome.
My name is Joanna Van Walraven, and I'd like to introduce Hannah Johnson, who is the graduate planner in my team. We're here to present the Reserve Classification and Naming Report. The purpose of this report is to seek a recommendation from the committee to classify and name 7 new reserves. This is a mandatory process under the Reserves Act and aligns with Council's naming of roads, open spaces and facilities policy. So to summarise, we are proposing 2 new reserves be classified as recreation reserves with 2 new names, and 5 new reserves be classified as local purpose esplanade reserves. Also, I'd like to draw your attention to a small typo, and that is in just Schedule 2, where it says for Manga Harakiki Esplanade. On map 6, it says addition to existing reserve. This is just for the paper copies, so it's been fixed on diligent, but it should say it's a new reserve. So, happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Joel. Are there any questions? No. Would someone like to move that? Councillor Louise, and seconded by Councillor Moko. Thank you. Any comment? I love reserves. Cool. Councillor Moko? No comment. No other comments. We'll go to the vote. Please, all those in favour with a show of hands. Anyone against?
Carried unanimously.
Thank you. Now that brings us to the close of this meeting. I am told that staff are ready and waiting to kick straight into the short briefing that they've prepared for us as well. So if you want to take maybe 5 minutes to just stretch, and we come straight back and do that, Amy?